Today we're revisiting the Lisa Eldridge Sorcery palette, and I'm going to do it again, try to get ready with me style, but we're going to have to be expedited and concise, and by we I mean I, because I actually need to run to work because I have a crap ton of things that I still need to do. It has been crazy with work the last 2 weeks in particular, because a project that I worked on for many years is finally coming to its culmination. And in academic research, work coming to its culmination means that you have to write a paper, and that is the stage at which we're at. It's a project that took many years to get to the point where it is, you know, submittable to a journal. I think it turned out into a really cool story in the end, but it took many years to get here, because basically the research question we wanted to answer required making models, setting up everything from scratch, and kind of, you know, yeah, taking a little bit of a chance and a risk that things are not going to work out. And because I'm the kind of person that likes to have a backup plan, I think it's maybe something that I learned during my PhD, to think a little bit about contingency plans in case experimental design setup A doesn't work, to have B already in the works, so that if A fails, I have something to fall back onto that is already in the works. I'm taking the Auric Glow Lash now, and because of that, throughout the years, I just kind of kept going and making the project more and more complicated, thinking, well, certainly some of these are bound to fail. But in the end, what happened is that I developed these two different like model systems, and we had to do this like very large-scale experiment, and in the end, both experimental models, albeit different from each other, yielded really interesting results. And I think I mentioned that before, but I do a lot of proteomics kind of work, so that's, you know, studying protein-protein interactions and deducing from protein-protein interactions what kind of, you know, proteins work together in functional modules, how they're regulated, you know, what kind of processes they participate in. Taking the Bendy Avocado concealer from First Aid Beauty. And so these types of omics works are also quite complicated in terms of data analysis. So after, you know, years of setting up the experimental protocol, which, trust me, was accompanied by blood, sweat, and actual tears. Okay, maybe not the blood, but like the sweat and tears for sure. And after all of the years and after all of the struggles to set this up experimentally and to get it to work at the lab, we finally got the results. And then we realized, well, oh crap, we don't really have the expertise to analyze such complex data sets. So we still had to, you know, take some time to figure out the bioinformatic analysis, get in touch with bioinformaticians, because that's a bit more their forte, to get like complex data sets and know exactly what kind of statistical analysis needs to be done in order for you to get, you know, reliable results from your data sets. I'm taking this Ever Matte primer from Vega to apply just a little bit here. So after many years, finally things came to a point where we had those data sets. They were looking very interesting, but the problem with things you generate in data sets is that usually when push comes to shove, you also need to do a little bit of like downstream validation. So you need to prove that what you find in your data set is actually specific for the process that you're interested in, say. So that took another significant amount of time, because it's not so easy, and the setup of my experiment is such that it's not so straightforward to do the downstream validations. I am taking my NARS Light Reflecting foundation. I've actually really been enjoying this foundation since I started using it again a bit more intensively. It is definitely far more full coverage than people are selling it to be. I think people are selling this to be like a light to medium, and I think you can definitely build it to be light, you can definitely build it to be medium, but to me this is definitely more on the medium side, because even with the little amounts that I put on, I always feel like, whoa, there's quite a bit of coverage going on here. So anyway, to make the long story short, finally we're at a point now where we can write up and submit the manuscript. And we are submitting it to a journal that is going to have a special issue focusing on the research topic that I work on. And the disadvantage slash advantage of that is that there is a deadline for it. Like usually when you're working on a paper, there's really no deadline. You can submit it when you decide it's done. But in this specific case, because they're doing this special issue, there is a deadline. And I was very happy for one that we have a deadline, because otherwise I know that writing the manuscript would have taken so much longer. I am doing my Gucci powder again because it works really well with this foundation. So all good. The problem with deadlines is that my boss, bless him, wonderful man, love working with him, is a very last minute person. And I remember when I first started working with him, because I was not aware of his character, he came to me a couple of times, let's say on a Thursday afternoon, and he's like, hey Mariam, I heard about this, you know, grant proposal opportunity that I think is really good. We can definitely come up with something interesting to submit. And I'll be like, yeah, great, that sounds amazing, let's do it, let's brainstorm a little bit of ideas. And then he would be like, the deadline is Tuesday. And I would go like, excuse me, like coming Tuesday, meaning we have 2 working days, the weekend, 1 more working day, and that's it. And he'll be like, yeah. And that's how he usually operates. He's great like this. He works really well, last minute under pressure. Probably it comes with the territory because he's an extremely busy man. Let's do a little bit of throwback for my bronzer here and take this Unicorn Tears bronzer from Too Faced. So anyway, because he's a last minute person and because he was very, very busy the last couple of months, he basically didn't have time to look at my manuscript and give me feedback before Tuesday last week. And the submission deadline is coming Monday. So basically I had less than 2 weeks to work on finalizing it, and we're talking going from a first draft to a last draft. And just to explain to you how the process works, usually when you have a first draft, you're going to discuss it with your supervisor, changes will be made, and then there are a lot of components you need to make. You need to write the paper, you need to make figures for it, tables, you need to maybe like even draw some model systems using a variety of different programs. You have to put your references because you need to refer to other literature when you're writing your own paper, and that is a lot of work, and a bunch of that it was in relatively preliminary phase last week because I just, you know, thought I would have more time. You know what, for blush I'm actually going to try my best to apply a tiny bit of Paradise Venus here from Pat McGrath, because I've kind of been missing Paradise Venus. But it's like really intense. I really need to go with a very light hand because it's already like, whew. So after you've done all of that, you've gone through like a first revision with your boss, or maybe on a second and a third revision, depending on, you know, how much work your manuscript needed. You have to send it to all the co-authors. And depending on, you know, how big your study is, there may be only a few co-authors and they're all your colleagues from the lab, or they may be, as in my case, international collaborators, you know, quite a few different people, and obviously you need to also have their approval. And trust me, usually most people will have an opinion about your manuscript, and a lot of the times it will be really valuable input. A lot of the times it will be, you know, personal styling choice in terms of writing or, you know, depiction of figures, in which case I think as a first author you kind of have the final say, because in the end of the day it's your story. But you need to also give your co-authors enough time to look at the manuscript. You can't just send it out on a Wednesday and be like, okay, so tomorrow you have it done, right? It doesn't work like that. So luckily, my boss said that he didn't really have to do major revisions before me sending off the manuscript to the co-authors. I'm taking the Skin Fetish trio from Pat McGrath Labs. I've said so many times that this to me is one of the star products from Pat McGrath to this day, and I wholeheartedly recommend it. And what I like to do is kind of like mix all the shades together. So we sent out the manuscript to the co-authors last Friday, and we gave them until this past Wednesday to give us feedback. And you can imagine that since Wednesday and since the beginning of the week I've had to do quite a few adjustments to the manuscript based on revisions from the co-authors, and it's been a bit stressful and a bit tiring, which is why I may seem and look a little bit more tired today. and which is also why I'm trying to be like chop chop, let's finish this on time. I'm going to spritz my little sponge here with Fix Plus. Now that also makes me remember to say something. I know a lot of you have asked for a bunch of comparison swatches between the Lisa Eldridge palette and my Pat McGrath palettes, and I promise I'm going to do that. Maybe I'll just do like a little desk view style video like in the weekend or something, where we go through the Lisa Eldridge palettes and I try to find dupes in my Pat McGrath palettes, so that those of you who have your Pat McGrath palettes and you're not quite sure whether you would like to splurge on Lisa Eldridge can have an idea whether it's worth it for you or not. Are there really truly unique special colors and textures in there, or can you skip? Okay, so what are we doing with the Sorcery palette today? I would like to actually try this more cooler toned green shade here, like a bluish tinged green, because my pants are actually the same color. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this shade a little bit here as a winged out liner shape and just like smudge it a tiny bit here in the outer corner. But then I'm going to immediately go in with this shade and like blend it a little bit in the outer portion of my lids, because I'm just very curious how well it will blend out without any sort of transition shade. Then I want to apply this shade on the inner portion of my lid, this one to sort of like marry the two together in the center of the lid. Probably going to go in with a combination of these two on my lower lashes, and then for my inner corner I'm going to have to pull out a highlighter from somewhere else, because none of these shades are truly suitable for me to use as an inner corner highlight. I'm taking the matte green shade now, greenish bluish shade. So here was a little, you know, summation into the inside workings of the academic's life. It's a fun time altogether. You have to be a jack of all trades if possible. Good writer, good at experimental design, good at data analysis, possibly statistics. Lately we are also required to be also excellent graphic designers. We should know how Illustrator, Photoshop, and you know, all of these relatively complicated programs work. And as of late, if we could also add bioinformatics skills, like actual programming skills, to our CV, they would be the happiest. If they could just pay us minimum to do like 5 different jobs, they would be the happiest. But for example, I have no like affinity with bioinformatics. I did complete a course on Code Academy for Python programming, so I have at least like a basic idea of what programming looks like. I did a couple of years ago when I was in between contracts, and while I thought it was fun and not as horrible as I imagined, like not as horribly boring as I imagined it, I think programming requires a certain type of like brain wiring. I think your brain needs to be a bit more wired towards, I don't know, being good at mathematics, which is not my forte. First of all, I have some like childhood traumas from mathematics. I'm taking the Worker Pro from Sonia G and going into the greenish bluish shade now. And if I ever have had any talent for mathematics, it was probably killed by a slew of like bad teachers. So to this day, I have a trauma for mathematics, to the point where you tell me I have to do something and I just freeze, my brain just freezes. And I think generally speaking, my brain is better wired and geared towards languages than it is for mathematics. So, because of all of that, I consider myself to be much more into, I don't know, designing experimental protocols. I just really enjoy like setting up things at the lab. I think that's really my forte. And I think I write relatively okay. Both of my supervisors have said independently of each other that they think I write quite well. So I consider that also to be a huge compliment, and also, you know, something that I consider to be a skill that I have. I think the shadow is actually blending out quite nicely through the crease, and you can basically continue to build up pigmentation to as much as you want. I have to say, once again, I am so impressed, and I love the texture and the color of this like blue-green shade, because I find it to be, once again, such a unique tone. I don't think that I have anything in my collection that's quite this tone. The texture for sure is different. A lot of people compare these to the cream to powder formula from Natasha Denona, but I'll be honest with you, I've extremely limited experience with that formula, because I think I only have one eyeshadow or two eyeshadows in that formula from her in the bronze palette. No, maybe it's just the one, that one dark brown shade, which doesn't feel like this shade here. I think there is high concentration of these, especially like bluish greenish cream to powder shades in her Metropolis palette, but I don't have the Metropolis palette, so I really can't compare. I might have to do a little bit of work during the weekend, although I would rather be filming my November favorites if I'm being completely honest with you, but okay. Next I'm going to take my little NYX glitter glue, which in my case is depotted in this little jar. For no other reason but because the packaging broke on me some, you know, several weeks after I bought it. So I'm going to pop that right here, and I'm actually going to pop a little bit here in the outer corner as well, because I want to apply that green shade over a glitter glue as well. And I'm actually going to take that little Worker Pro from Sonia G again, deposit some of that beautiful green eyeshadow, and just pack it on. And you can definitely tell that there's a bit more, you know, shine and intensity coming through over the glitter glue, but it is not extreme. So I don't think that you absolutely have to use a glitter glue with this. Next I'm going to take this very funky, you know, taupe kind of shade, because I'm actually quite curious how it's going to look on the lids. And I'm going to apply it here in the inner portion of the lid, again using my Worker Pro because I'm too lazy to pick out another brush. I think it actually works really well with this green. I quite like where this look is going, you guys. What do you think? For my inner corner I'm going to pop this highlighter from Nabla. It's one of their skin glazing formula highlighters, and this is just your like more cool toned pinky champagne. I think a perfect finishing touch to this look. Now you can probably leave the look here if that's what you really wanted, but I have plans for putting on some glitter, because glitter is the spice of life. I'm going to take a few flakes from this beautiful duochrome shade, and I'm going to apply them more here towards that neutral shade and going into the green, but like sort of mostly in the center of the lid. I don't want this to completely overtake the look, but I just want it to add to the complexity. Taking my little pencil brush again and going into the deep matte green from Sonia G, which reminds me, before that I'm going to pop on a little bit of the Intensify stick from Pat, so that the green shade stays longer on my outer corners without, you know, starting to gather when my eyes start to water. And again, taking this beautiful green shade, running it here on my lower lashes, here more towards the outer portion of the eye, because I'm going to put the sparkly shade we put also on the outer part of the lid on the rest of my lower lashes. Taking my Worker Pro just to blend everything out a little bit on the lower lashes. Mandatory sparkle moment. Oh, so beautiful. I really love how this look turned out. I'm just really falling more and more in love with this little curation of colors. And I can tell you, Pat has given us a lot of greens, but I don't think you can achieve quite this look with her greens. You will still achieve a really beautiful green smoky eye with her eyeshadows, but it will not be quite this tone. I think what Lisa has nailed in these eyeshadow palettes is a good balance between stuff we've seen before and new interesting tones that are quite unique to her little palette curations. So overall, I'm really happy that I have picked up both of these palettes. I think I'm going to enjoy them so much. For my lipstick, You could totally go with Sorcery, it would look beautiful with this look, but I don't want to bore you by wearing Sorcery every other day, so I picked another one of my favorite like comfort lipstick colors, which is Flash 3 from Pat McGrath. Sometimes I wonder whether Pat and Lisa know each other. In my mind, you know, in my dream world, they know each other, they have mutual respect and, you know, love for each other's works, but, you know, they remain slightly competitors, so they don't really talk about each other. Does that sound like a realistic scenario? Anyway, I'm rambling. I really need to get going and start working on my paper again. Thank you so much for watching. We shall see each other again very, very soon. Just have a little bit of patience for the comparison swatches. They are coming. And yeah, that's pretty much all for today. Bye!